Okay, all right. Well, it's pretty much there on our side. We've started recording already, but we'll definitely edit it a bit at the end. So let me just present a welcome. Thank you so much for attending today. It's good to see lovely familiar faces and also to see new faces of people who are joining this community. First off, thank you for those who've sent through some questions prior to the session. I think they're all relevant. And what we'll do is actually try to do our best in, embedding some of the questions we had, already in the session with the questions that you actually presented. So we're definitely going to tackle, some people asked how much more engaged are employees and companies in CSR versus the ones without. Can you get an engagement bumped or lifted by focusing on CSR, and which charities do employees actually do employee engagement well, and what makes it so good? So we'll try to weave these questions into our conversation, and if not, there is also a second and third part of this event series that we can tackle these questions and answer some of the challenges that you might have. Just as a general introduction, you'll see a few other communities here on in the webinar. We've got Olivia, who's our events coordinator. She'll be collating all the questions and providing you with any kind of logistical support. So if you have any issues at all, then please let her know and do a private message on the Zoom chat room. We've also got Madison, who's our team leader in marketing and content. She'll be taking notes and working with our content team to provide a bit of a blog post summary after the session, and also edit the video that we're recording so that people who can't make it to the event today can get a copy and a summary of what we actually spoke about today. But anyway, let's get started and we'll see how we go. Screen working?
Yeah, all good.
Fantastic, thank you. So look, I mentioned before, there's quite a few new faces here, which is great to see, but a lot of you might not know what Community does. So I just want to take maybe 30 to 60 seconds to introduce what we do. Community is a social enterprise, and our mission is to use technology to connect, engage, and mobilize volunteers to tackle the world's greatest challenges. We essentially facilitate collaboration between corporates, not-for-profits, universities, and volunteers just like you and myself to amplify our collective impact. We base our impact framework around the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So you'll see all of us wearing the pin all the time. And we're actually a formal partner of the United Nations to really uphold and advocate for the Sustainable Development Goals. I guess what makes us unique is that we take a holistic approach to volunteer engagement. And although, whilst taking action in the form of volunteering is definitely a key part of what we facilitate, we also want to create greater awareness around the social issues around us through storytelling and announcements, and really cultivating messages from subject matter experts like the panelists here today and any other of the charities on our platform. We also want to provide a common ground, a safe space for like-minded people to congregate, to exchange ideas, and to have discussions on how we can tackle these complex issues. And then finally, of course, we want to offer a variety of ways for volunteers to really participate and get involved and really engage in activities that they feel like they can actually make the most impact. So I guess essentially, these events that we're running really embodies what Community does on a day-to-day level. And look, yes, we have a platform. No, we're not going to do a demo today. We do use a crowdsourcing method to really make it scalable and to provide everyone with a personalized experience. So imagine that we're like a combination of LinkedIn and Airtasker combined for social good. But the most important thing here is really about staff engagement, which is really at the center of our approach, and why we've created this whole series around CSR and staff engagement combined to really help solve our collective barriers and challenges. So as for our theme, it's employee engagement in corporate social responsibility. It is a very complex issue, and I think it's worthwhile for us to break that down into multiple events to cultivate better discussions. So we've broken this topic into 3 parts. And today we're going to talk about, I guess, CSR, why, how, and what else, and really focusing on how we can get everyone on the same page and creating the right mindset to approach CSR holistically. Next, on the 29th of July, we're going to have focus on innovation and CSR, and really about looking at the implementation of these CSR strategies and sharing some of the innovative approaches and the current trends to inspire and support other fellow practitioners in this space. Finally, in the third part, which is on the 26th of August, we're going to focus on overcoming any systemic issues together, not in isolation. We spoke to a lot of CSR managers and people in the sustainability and analytics space, and we know that a lot of people are trying to do 10 jobs by themselves. And what we're trying to do is get some common learnings and share some practical approaches to overcome these barriers. So all the questions you raise in these sessions and afterwards for our survey will be collated And hopefully we can actually translate these into discussion points in the third session so that we can actually look at practical solutions that way. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce you to our panelists. We're really honored to have them here today. We've got Helen and Francis from Optus, Nina from Beaumont People, and of course, Debbie from Macquarie Business School, who's going to share some of the highlights and insights today. Now, obviously, they all play a critical role in their day job. And I think they each bring a considerable amount of experience beyond this. So I just want to ask each of them to have a quick 30 seconds brief of, why are they in this space, share maybe a story about their motivation, why they want to facilitate collaboration between corporates and not-for-profits, and then we'll pass it off to Debbie to set the context. So putting you guys on the spot, Nina, if you don't mind kicking off, why are you in this space and what's your motivation?
Yeah, sure. Lovely to meet you all. So my name is Nina. I'm Managing Director at Beaumont People. I'm also President of our industry body, which is the Recruitment Consulting and Staffing Association. And I'm also Chair of the Development Committee of the North Foundation, which is a charity for medical research and patient care for the Northern Sydney Local Health District. And this is I'm really passionate about this topic because everything I do is about placing people first. That's what we do in our day job from a recruitment and HR consulting business, and also with my work with charity. We recruit a lot in the charity space. So we work with over 300 different charities. So we see firsthand a lot of how this impacts the charities, and we see how the engagement works there. But the other thing is we're big believers in meaningful work. We've done a lot of research into what actually meaningful work is and how it impacts an employee engagement. And it won't surprise any of you to know that there's a real link with CSR. So that's why, sorry, I could go on forever, Victor, I get very excited, but that's why I'm passionate about this topic and that's why I'm here today.
Thank you so much for sharing. Helen, I'm going to pass to you just to make a brief intro. Hi,
everyone. Great to join you all this morning. Helen Maisano, I'm Director of Sustainability at Optus. I think I've got the best job in the whole world because I get to do what I love and work for a purpose-driven company as well. And being a purpose-driven individual, it's I love this space. I have an NGO background. I used to be on the other side of the fence for many years, developing partnerships with corporates. And I could see that the influence that companies have and the mobilization that they can create across the business. And it's what inspired me to kind of move into the area that I am in now. So yeah, that's just a bit about me.
Thank you for sharing, Helen. Francis, to you.
Good morning, everybody. So Francis Martin, I'm VP of Operations at Optus and been there for about 8 years now. So to me, just echoing both what Nina and Helen said, it is, at Optus, we lead very much with a people first strategy, and that's both the people that we work with and also the broader community. It's something that I also feel very passionate about. It is, I think, as we, more and more companies are becoming purpose-driven organisations, and I think people are looking for that stronger connection with the community. And certainly, the teams that I work with, to them, it actually feels very important to be able to give back, and whether it be time or money or expertise. But it certainly is, something that is actually much more meaningful for people. And I think as corporates, we actually have deep responsibility to work within our community and on our community, and to make it everything, to influence, to make things generally a better place for many people.
Fantastic, thanks, Francis. And last but not least, Debbie, you can give the intro and then also set the scene for us. That would be fantastic.
Excellent. Good morning, everyone. The image that you saw and just disappeared is of my TED Talk, where I speak about my journey volunteering as a student to help a kid and then becoming part of the volunteering sector, and which led me to do a master's degree in not-for-profit management and a PhD on volunteering. So that's something I've been doing for many years. And then I've also became a professor of corporate social responsibility at Macquarie Business School, which is where I am today. But it all started because I volunteered at the age of 20 to help one kid. So you never know how volunteering opportunities can change your life. And with this positive note, I'll start sharing my screen if that's okay. And would you like me to begin, Victor?
Yeah, go for it.
Excellent. So I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land. And I know it's difficult in a virtual gathering, but I can acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land where I'm at, which is the Beaumont People. I'm here today because, as I was saying, I'm very passionate about corporate social responsibility and creating meaningful interactions with all stakeholders to do it in a more impactful way. For this reason, I've published several books on the topic, including one specific on employee engagement in corporate social responsibility, which came out last year. And it's a collection of really great chapters from different contributors from all around the world around innovative ways in which you can engage your employees in CSR. So what do we mean by engaging employees in CSR? Why should we do it? And how can we do it well? I only have 7 slides, so it's not going to be terrible, and no bullet points. So here we are, and you've probably seen these numbers where employee engagement is constantly low. And we have people who are engaged is less than half the workforce. Around 38% of below manager level employees are disengaged, and 1 in 5 employees are actively disengaged. That means they hate their job and they badmouth their employer. It's just a terrible situation to be in, not just for the company, but also for the employee, for his or her well-being and mental state, to be in the work that you are actively disengaged with. It's really hard. So what can we do about it? We can start with the why. So you know the gold circle, and I say it's still golden. Simon Sinek TED Talk, one of the most viewed TED Talks of all time, which is interesting in itself, on how talks on purpose and meaningfulness, vulnerability, and so on are the leading TED Talks. And so what Simon says is that great companies and leaders are different to everyone else because they start inside out. They start with the why. They don't just know what they do and how they do it. They know why they do what they do. But looking at employee engagement in CSR, this is an important idea because you want to make sure that you engage employees in CSR for the right why, and that you have a really strong why for your company so that employees can be engaged. And it was really interesting to see that, you know, Helen and Francis were talking about how they work in a purpose-driven company, and Nina spoke about the meaningfulness at work because we are attached or we align with the purpose of the company. So when we do anything, especially in a large organization, it's really important to know why we're doing it. And so even if we engage employees in our CSR, we need to stop and ask ourselves, why are we doing it? Is it because it's a trend, because we see everyone else is doing it? Or is it because we really want to utilize all our resources, power, intellect, people to create a long-lasting impact on the community, society, and the world? Is it about addressing societal greatest problems, as Victor showed in his mission statement? So if we know why we're doing it, it's easier to understand how to do it and then what to do with employees. So how do we articulate our purpose? And that's really important because there is an interesting study by EY, which some of you probably know of, where they ask, it's called the business case for purpose, and they ask managers and leaders all around the world to talk about the importance of purpose. I think even the survey leaders did not expect such strong answers. So you could see that up to 94% of people say that clear purpose is important for motivating people. It's important for inspiring innovation. It's important for performance. It's important for transformation. Everything we want to achieve in our business can be done through a strong purpose. And a strong purpose is not only what our company is doing or how it's doing it. It's certainly not about being the best in the world. I remember once I was teaching a class and I was talking about the importance of vision. And one of the students raised his hand up and says, we have a vision, but it's not very inspiring. And I said, what's your vision? It says to be the #1 in the market. So of course it's not very inspiring. Being best in the world is no longer inspiring. Being best for the world is. And so you can see how a large number of leaders have agreed that having a shared purpose can help the company in creating organizational change, transformation efforts, and whatever it is that you're trying to do as a business, having a strong purpose is important. And by having a strong purpose, again, you have to be very specific around what it is that your business can help to achieve. So for example, I work with a healthcare company, which is there to enhance people's quality of life. And that's embedded in everything that they do. And the employees get to share stories about how they're helping to improve people's quality of life. That's a specific positive purpose, which help everyone align around a shared purpose. So I've already mentioned a few of the benefits of having a strong CSR and purpose, and that goes to some of the questions that were already mentioned, because research does show us that there is a strong correlation between having a positive CSR, having a well-articulated purpose, and employee engagement, commitment, emotional attachment to the workplace, a sense of affiliation and pride. People share a same narrative and culture of change and impact. But that could also affect the organization, where you get an enhanced brand and reputation, the performance is better, and your organization can become the destination of choice for purpose-driven people. And why do you specifically want that kind of people? Because they're intrinsically motivated to achieve the shared goals of the organization. But obviously, if we're talking about impact purpose, the most important benefit of having such a purpose is to have societal change and social impact beyond what the company is already doing as part of its core operation. But not all CSRs are born equal. So I've seen many companies with CSR where it's not holistic, it's not embedded in everything that they do. CSR is often seen as a marketing scheme. And I often say CSR is not a report, it's not a marketing stunt, it's not a role, it's not a department. What it is a mindset and an approach, which is why I like using the idea of strategic CSR. And this is a definition I developed for the second edition of my strategic CSR book, which is a holistic and long-term approach to the broad responsibilities of business based on stakeholder integration, ethical behavior, while utilizing the firm resources and brand to address societal environmental issues. Yes, it's a lot, but if you really want to be known for your social responsibility, you can't just do it as an instrumental halfway kind of approach. And so you could see that this definition has 6 aspects of strategic CSR. And number 4 is stakeholder integration, not stakeholder management, not stakeholder prioritization, but really integrating your stakeholders into the company and your CSR. And the most important stakeholders that you have are your people. And if you can integrate your people into your CSR, you are creating opportunities for people to be involved, to be part of the story, to be part of the change. And then you'll also become more effective and more impactful in your CSR, because obviously the more people that are involved, the better work that you can do. So I don't have a lot of time today, so I'm going to just touch very briefly on a couple of points around employee engagement and in and through CSR, and hopefully through the Q&A, we'll get more time to elaborate on these points. So what we see is that employee engagement in CSR have kind of a two-way street. So CSR in itself, when a company has a very strong and holistic social responsibility, it does engage employees. In the earlier years, I was at Macquarie Business School, which was from 2011. And until 2015, I created and led what I call the CSR Partnership Network, which was a fantastic network of 34 leading organizations, including Optus, where together we created and shared CSR knowledge. And the first study that we've done was around corporate volunteering. And what we've shown is that employees who participate in social responsibility, or employees that feel that their employers or employer is socially responsible, had a significant higher level of engagement, emotional attachment to the workplace, and intention to stay in the organization for the years to come. So it's about how we engage employees in CSR and through CSR. It creates a sense of purpose and pride, which can lead to emotional engagement. Maybe let's take a second here just to say what I mean by employee engagement. So when we talk about employee engagement, we talk about people who are so enthused about their work that they take extra role behavior. They don't just do their work according to their job description, but they move above and beyond what is required of them because they feel that the work is meaningful. We also see that employee engagement in CSR can be done through the integration I've just mentioned, involvement and leadership. We have now an increasing volume of examples where employees lead CSR. They don't just wait for the email of the company telling them come and volunteer next Thursday, but we actually have employee-led CSR where employees come up with initiatives and ideas. And maybe we can hear from Optus too, because there are some fantastic examples where employees came up with CSR solutions for some social problems. Then we have two ways: the traditional way, which is still very important, through payroll giving and corporate volunteering, where employees are told by the company which charities we support, and then they can be part of it either through their time or through their money. But we see now an emerging trend around things like social entrepreneurship, social political activism, and employee-led CSR. Now, I don't have enough time to talk about all of these, but the good news is we'll do it in the next webinar. So next month, we'll just focus on the new ways and the innovative ways of engaging employees in CSR. And so I'd like to leave you with 5 key ways to create meaningful experiences for employees who want to participate in CSR. Start with the community. I love that Helen came from the not-for-profit sector. I came from the not-for-profit sector. Oftentimes, I have to say less than in the past, but sometimes companies think that coming to the not-for-profit sector, they're just being seen as the savior, know-it-all, big company that's going to help. But they don't often understand the needs of the community organization and what they require in order to have a successful program. And so it's important to create partnership and conversation with the community and with the not-for-profits you're going to be working with, and have the impact in mind, why you're doing it, what are you trying to create. The second key way is connect employees to impact. One of the things we found in the survey on corporate volunteering was we asked people what would make them volunteer or what would make them volunteer more. And it came up again and again, if I knew what my impact was, if I knew how together we are creating a difference, that would make me volunteer more or start to volunteer. I cannot oversell you the importance of telling employees about the impact that was created through their volunteering. Oftentimes, companies report on their input, how many people volunteer for how many hours, but not the stories of impact and change, which is so important to engage employees. Craft a shared narrative. When people have a similar story, that connects people, right from the times of the hunters and gatherers, where we were all connecting around the campfire, telling stories. Stories connect people. And if we have a shared narrative of how we are working with and for the community, that's a powerful tool to use. Build platforms for generating and sharing impact. Create a space where people can share their stories, how they, what they've done, how they participated in the CSR, what it meant for them. This will help them not only share their impact, but generate further impact as well. And last, embrace freedom and meaningfulness. The more choice we have in participating and what they're participating for, the more they can lead these kind of initiatives, the more meaningful they become. Obviously, it's not always easy because in very large organizations, we can't let everyone do their own thing. But to even have two choices instead of one could increase the sense of meaningfulness of this experience. So there is a lot more to talk about, but I'm going to stop here now, just on 9:30, right on time, and then we can engage in a conversation with all of you. Thank you.
Thanks, Debbie. Thanks for sharing that and to set the context. I know it's hard to kind of combine really condensed weeks of research in 7, 8 to 10-minute block, so you've done well. So obviously we're talking about holistic and strategic CSR today. So what I want to do is actually throw to the other panelists on how can we actually turn that into employee engagement, whether you've got any examples of success or challenges in kind of making that transition. So Helen, I think Debbie mentioned Optus a few times, so why don't we start with you and see what kind of examples you can share with us?
Okay, great. Thank you. And I think, Debbie, echo what Debbie was saying around, linking purpose, linking the why is really important. So at Optus, it's important for us to have a very focused approach. So we enable our people to get involved in different ways. We have strategic partnerships and we have focus areas around education and employability, for example. But we also have our workplace giving and general volunteering. And, our role is to really set the structure for our people and make it easy for them to get involved. And people do get involved for different reasons. It needs to resonate with them. So does that mean that we support everything and anything? It doesn't. We have a community investment focus and framework around what we support, whether it's education, employment, as I mentioned, digital enablement through our programs like Digital Thumbprint and also Donate Your Data. But we also work with business units, and Francis can talk a little bit more about this, but we tailor, I guess, the engagement from in collaboration with our business units, leveraging their skills, their abilities, their experience, their knowledge into our programs. So we work very closely with our strategic partners, and we will co-create an engagement piece. And Pathways to Employment is one of those programs that we work with retail and have collaborated with retail. The program has been running for quite a few years, but now it's pretty much owned, run, and we support a retail team, but they pretty much own and run with it. The other thing I think in having a framework and a strategic focus, and understanding that, you know, there isn't a one size fits all, but trying to join the dots as much as possible around connecting people to, you know, your company purpose and vision with your strategy is really critical. We have an annual Your Voice survey, and for years now, CSR, social and environmental activities, is the main driver, one of the top 3 drivers for staff engagement at Optus. And so I think that is because we've been very intentional around, you know, connecting what we do best as a company and linking it to the social needs and engaging our people's skills, abilities, time to be able to support those needs and strengthen the community. I would just add, you know, with our giving, we have a platform, Yes for Good. That's an open platform. We say to people, it's your money. You allocate it where you want to allocate it, and we will match up to $300 per year per person. And so we let people do that. We also let them volunteer for causes that they're passionate about. But when we take a strategic approach and mobilize teams for, you know, for specific programs where we're leveraging their skills and abilities, we see that people feel that their input is meaningful. They do it as a team. They can add their experience. And the other thing that we also don't forget is that our people also learn and develop. So it's not just contributing to the community, but our people, when they're coaching or mentoring young people through our ABCM partnership, they're also, we do surveys, our people say, through that program, through that engagement, I became a better leader. I improved my listening skills. I've improved my communication skills. I've also learned more about social issues and some of the challenges that young people face, you know, when they come from backgrounds that, you know, vulnerable situations and different circumstances. Because some people live, you know, if you haven't been exposed to those, you live in your bubble. So I think I'll just pause there, and probably I'd love Frances to talk a little bit more about our pathways to employment, because Frances, that was something that we talked about, I think it was 5 years ago, when it was just an idea. And, you know, you as you know, a leader in our retail space, just took that and put your weight behind it. But it got a lot of people engaged. Is that okay, Victor?
Of course, yeah. Please have a conversation.
Thanks. And Debbie, I really want to acknowledge what you said, because I think that's almost the blueprint that we work to. And having, you know, we are a purpose-driven organisation. I think your 5 takeaway points links very much through to our mission, our vision, our mission, and actually our strategies. You know, our strategies are very much around making unique connections, driving digital everywhere, and building on our amazing people. So our CSR program delivers through all of that. And I think the organisations that I see the most successful in this are those that actually link it to their strategy and work out where they can actually add the most value to the community. And then, of course, go and measure it. And we have some incredible programs like, you know, Donate Your Data, which is not only what we do, but what, you know, how we build lasting relationships with our customers, because they can actually participate in some of these campaigns as well. So really echo everything that you actually said. And I think from an organisation, it's really important to do that. And in addition to some of the other things that you said, I think we really want to build, our strategy is actually building lasting relationships with our customers and our community. And certainly CSR programs is a great way to engender trust within your people and also within your customers, because I think people are looking for a higher purpose and a link to that. And you know, for us, it's about keeping our talent. It's about growing that talent and creating those opportunities. But just to talk to pathways, yeah, so Helen was right. It's I work very much with our front line, so I'm a lot more on the executional side and really driving the engagement. And I'm really pleased to say that our engagement score is much higher than that. We have significantly higher engagement scores. And a lot of that is driven by some of these purpose-driven behaviours and engagement in community. And as Helen said, we operate on a corporate level, but we also, and one of the questions that came through last night is, how do you anchor behind a single corporate purpose? Well, actually, we don't. We do have a number of that we can anchor behind from a corporate position, but we also respect that individuals have their own passion. And to Helen's point, we talked about, that we actually sponsor people and match their fundraising. But the pathways is something, one of our target segments is youth, and we work very much with driving, supporting youth from disadvantaged backgrounds through various mentoring programs. And a lot of those people stay with us for 3 years. And so a lot of our leaders, our staff actually get very engaged with them. We have group sessions. We talk about, how do you get employed? What's important? Topics that they may not get sometimes opportunities to talk about with their parents or their leaders. And then we decided that, we've done such great work with these people. How can we take it further? So we decided to create pathways to employment where we create the opportunities for many of them to come and work for the organisation. And that could be on a casual basis or it could be on a permanent basis, depending what happens when they go after school. And it involves all levels of our organisation. So people that volunteer to mentor, but then down to our retail stores and getting the store managers involved in working with them in the community, employing them, and then supporting them as they go through that transition. So they have to be sustainable programs. And I think that's been now running for, 5 years from, pretty much a conversation that Helen and I had in a coffee shop on campus to taking it through. And actively, it's something that our staff actually ask every year, when are we going to start the employment for these pathways? So it's something that they really look forward to. And just the other last thing that I just want to talk about, we bring CSR into all our activities, even our rewards programs and our trips for, our top winners. Every destination we go to, typically they go away for 3 or 4 days. We used to go overseas, but now local. One of those days, everyone does a CSR day, and it's something that immerses you in that local community. And just like the Your Voice survey, the highlight of all those trips is the opportunity for people to participate in that local community and tangibly see what a difference they could make. And that's been, building schools, painting schools, working on the environment. This year we're going to Northern Queensland and we're doing an exercise about, helping clean up the reef. So I do think it just needs to be anchored at every level of your organisation, and that's what really brings, the pulse to the organisation, and it has a great feel-good aspect for everybody.
Fantastic, Frances. Thank you so much for sharing and the examples. Nina, I guess from your side, any insights that you can share, especially around your meaningful work research as well?
Yeah, very much so, because whilst I agree with everything that's been said, what we've seen in the research is that that's not necessarily what's happening out there. So there is some gaps that we need to fill. So we did some research into what meaningful work is. We talk about the term meaningful work a lot, anecdotally, but there'd never been any research in Australia at all as to what actually meaningful work was for Australians. And it won't surprise you to know that everyone's path to meaningful work is unique. It's actually different things for different people, and that's okay. But there are some common factors. And the third biggest contributing factor to what makes work meaningful is making a difference in the contribution to society. So it's number one is trust of managers. Number two is culture. Now, interestingly, if you get involved in making a difference contributing to society, that actually improves the trust of your managers and your culture as well. So it has a knock-on effect to the top 3 factors. It's going to make your workplace more meaningful to your employees, which has knock-on effects to engagement, as Debbie's talked about, but also still feel things like profitability and creativity and innovation and all the good stuff that we like to keep our organizations going. The challenge is that there's a 20 percentage point difference between people that want that and people that feel that their organizations are providing it. So people aren't getting what they want from their organizations from that perspective. And further, and this is quite a scary stat, and I challenge some of you to think about how much this is true of your organizations, or if you're in charity land, how much it's true of the take up of the programs you're providing from a CSR perspective. Only 40% of our respondents actively participate in any of the kind of volunteering opportunities that are provided to them by their organizations. And I'm sure that even within that 40%, they're not taking up all of the opportunities. So there's a lot more that we could actually grasp at here. And I really love, and this kind of goes to the conversation we've had already, this idea of tying it in with purpose and impact, because that's where we see a much bigger take up. And I'll give you some examples. So we work with an organisation up in the Northern Rivers. I saw that we had Beck on the call, who's our general manager up there. We work with a fashion brand up there, a company called Spell. You may have heard of them, but they do a huge amount around sustainability, around making sure that they're sourcing all their clothing, all their products sustainable. They give a lot of money back to sustainability programs in the charity space, that side, and it's actually part of their recruitment process. So in terms of attracting staff and attracting the right kind of people, it makes this, people want to work there because of that, and they win out in the kind of war for talent over and over again because of that fact. So things like that, where you're making a difference, where the impact is tied to your purpose, is where we see real significant benefit. And even when I think about internally what we do at Beaumont People, and we have to be careful, we work with over, as I said, over 300 charities. We also work with a lot of corporate clients. We have to be careful not to kind of pick favorites in terms of which charities we support, but the opportunities we provide our staff are tied with their skills and where they can make an impact. So two things off the top of my head that we do are that we run with St Vincent de Paul's, we run a thing called Job Club, which provides career advice for homeless people and for people that are in shelters for domestic abuse and that kind of thing. And we've got story after story of people that we've got back on their feet, back into work, kids back into school, where our consultants sit there and go, I changed that person's life because I'm the person that helped them with their resume, and I helped them with their interview and their job interview. And we take the skills we have to make a big difference. We do the same with an organisation called Settlement Services International, where we help refugees into the country and helping them get onto their feet from a job perspective. So where you can tie the skills that you have in your organisation to the impact that can make and the difference it can make to society, that's where we've seen a much greater uptake. And that's, I think, where you can bridge some of that gap in terms of those areas that are perhaps missing, Victor.
Thanks for sharing, Nina. I'm just watching the clock as well. So anyone who's in the audience, if you have any questions, please throw them at us. But there's still a few more questions I might be able to go through with the panel. So look, I guess everyone who's in the room are already buying into the whole CSR, transitioning into staff engagement side. So the other side that usually don't get spoken a lot is around the risk and challenges. So what are the risks involved and what are the challenges involved when we are actually trying to kind of take that transition forward? Debbie, do you have anything that you want to share around those risks and challenges that you can start the conversation? You're on mute. Hold on. Debbie, you're still on mute.
Sorry, I was reading Rory's question, so I missed yours. Could you please repeat that?
That's all right. What are some of the risks and challenges that organizations might face as they go through this kind of transition to link staff engagement and CSR?
Yeah, that's a good one. So firstly, I just wanted to add to everything that my colleagues here said, and just say that this is now becoming something employees expect of their companies as part of the benefits they get in the workplace. We do not just want to get a job and a pay. We want to get meaningfulness and purpose in the workplace. And as Nina said, there is no better way of creating a sense of meaningfulness other than service. So service and impact are the best ways of creating a sense of meaningfulness in work. The risks that are doing it is not following the key ways that I've mentioned. So if you do not work with a community organization, and you just come up with your own idea of corporate volunteering. And I've heard it so many times of a not-for-profit saying, I had a big organization, a big corporation calling me and said, we're bringing 200 volunteers next Thursday. and you just need to deal with it. And what do? You let them paint walls or plant trees, and that's not a meaningful experience, because I don't feel, one, that I'm creating an impact, and two, it doesn't really meet the community needs. So it's important that we come out of the community needs. Another thing that I'd like to raise, I'm going to let my colleagues maybe share more information on that, is that sometimes companies have 1 day a year of volunteering. I've seen one company, I'm not going to mention name, but it's a big multinational company, where they had a video about corporate volunteering day. It was all done on 1 day a year, which again doesn't necessarily meet the needs of the community. And it was all about a t-shirt. So you do that, you get the t-shirt, you have to volunteer, you get the t-shirt, you have to volunteer with the t-shirt. And it just became all around the t-shirt, instead of what are we going to do, and what kind of impact are we going to create, and how is this going to be meaningful to us and to the community. So it's really important that you think about this and work with a community organization to make it meaningful for them and for the employees. And last point that I want to make is, don't just use it as a team building. It's kind of like the aim and the goals. If you aim just to use corporate volunteering as a team building exercise, it's not going to work. But if you do it to create impact, then you really build team cohesiveness and the shared story.
Thank you, Debbie. And if I can pass it back to Helen and Francis, there's also a question there that directs to you. So if you can weave that in somehow as a risk and challenge, that would be great.
Just sharing some of the risks, and I think that, you know, from experience, it's important that I agree with what Debbie's talking about, you know, making it meaningful. But you also, in some programs, you need to brief your people. You need, you know, before the program, before they immerse themselves in the program, there needs to be context setting. There needs to be insight provided into who are you supporting? What is their background? What are the sort of things that these young people or vulnerable community members are facing? I think if you put your people in a situation where, you know, they've never, you know, spoken to a young person who may have grown up in a family where domestic and family violence was the norm, and, you know, what do you do if the young person says something like that? So I think that it's important that you brief. It's part of them understanding that their role, what that impact is going to do, why their support, what their expertise or coaching is going to provide that young person or that individual, but also giving that context around the background, because the education component is really, really critical. The other practical suggestion I have, which can happen, and I've seen it happen, I've seen it even at Optus where we've had to pull back, is when you've got a strategy and you've got a framework, and you know, your activities need to be planned. You know, so otherwise you can cause fatigue amongst people, donor fatigue. You can cannibalize your own programs. You know, I don't know. I know that you know, there's a lot of clutter in communications, and so you want to make sure that you create space, you know, within your plans so that you can focus on communicating the opportunities and engaging people, and it's not getting lost with a whole lot of other stuff. The other thing I would suggest is if you don't have policies around volunteering, what you support, what you don't support, how many days do you provide? Is it during company time? Do you support weekend volunteering? All those things. If you don't have that, it can create a lot of, I guess the conversation can be around that rather than the activity. So putting the structure in place helps address potential risks.
Yeah, just to build on that. So yeah, we also have company days. We definitely don't do it on 1 day of the year because that would not be great for our customers apart from anything else. So team engagement is an outcome, but it's not the purpose. And I think that just needs to be, and, you know, there can be multiple purposes, but again, we link it to our strategy. I think for many of us, it's actually, you know, getting involved in things like hackathons, where you actually have, you pose a problem and you get like-minded people coming together to solve things. And I think when you work with a big corporate organization, you have a diversity and a range of skills and a range of interests, and people like to contribute in different ways. So I think you have to be flexible to be able to acknowledge that. And if you anchor it around a problem and how that links with your organisation, I think you're continuing to drive that message. I'll just say, address a question from Bronwyn, which is, what's the headline you use to grab the attention of your most cynical executives when you're seeking their support and engagement for CSR initiatives? The great thing about doing this is actually we have a lot of data, and data can remove the emotion from it. It gives you the tangible results. So, and, you know, it actually has very positive commercial outcomes in many instances. So whether that be around retaining your top talent, whether it, you know, for us about keeping our customers for longer because they actually feel a deeper connection with us as a business. So there are things that you can tangibly measure. If you're talking about, you know, driving sustainability and things like the environment, again, they can have really tangible outcomes for us that can contribute to our bottom line. So, so if there was a cynic like that, I would actually show them the data, show them the feedback, let the people do the talking, and encourage them to go to a hackathon and actually see that, you know, getting for something that actually costs a little bit, really no investment other than people's time for a day, and that an outcome can solve a significant problem, which could improve things internally, then that data kind of speaks for itself.
Thanks, Francis. And Nina, if you have anything to share.
Yeah, I want to jump in and just talk about one of the risks that we haven't highlighted yet, which is actually the risk around the management of volunteers, both internally and with charities. So this is a very difficult conversation for charities that you're working with to have directly with you, because they want the volunteers, they want the support, they want your, you know, they want your contributions both in time and definitely financial. That's really useful to them. So they don't want to offend you or upset you, but if it's not impactful for the charities themselves, that becomes quite challenging for them. And when we've talked about some of the risks of, you know, set days or doing things at set times, or, you know, you might, without even realizing, actually be causing quite big headaches for your charities around where they're just trying to give you stuff to do to keep you occupied because they need the money, just to put it really bluntly, right? So and you know, if that's the case, hopefully they'll have a conversation with you and you're working in partnership with them and you're actually talking about the impact. But the impact that we talked about and the purpose that we talked about earlier needs to work both for the corporate and for the charity, and it needs to be impactful for both. And like your employee relationships internally, you need to ensure that you can have those kind of honest and open discussions with your partners around how it's working, what could be improved, and review these things on a regular basis, so you don't find yourself having gone down a rabbit hole of doing something because it's habit and everybody's a bit jaded and nobody's really getting what they want out of it, but you don't want to take it off the table because it's better than nothing. And I think that's where a lot of programs can accidentally end up, through not necessarily having enough review and open and honest discussion about what's working and what's not working. So I did want to call out that risk as well, Victor.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing, and to the panelists as well. I'm just looking at the time. I can't believe it's already kind of 9:58, and I promised everyone to get there on time. So let me just do a quick wrap up and also a bit of call to action for the next event as well. So before I let you go, I can tell you, Helen, it's complete coincidence that we're running a campaign by the same name, but we're actually, you know, collaborating with universities, corporates, and not-for-profits. We've actually tried to, we're launching a 6-month campaign between July and December to really build that community and shared vision piece, where we'll be leveraging a lot of skill-based volunteering opportunities and mentoring opportunities, so that volunteers on the corporate side can actually join forces with students who actually want to do some good and hone their skills at the same time, to support a lot of the not-for-profits that we're actually already connecting with. The campaign is endorsed by the United Nations Association of Australia, and we've already got about 6 unis, 32 not-for-profits, and 4 corporates, including Dell and NBN, who's want to kickstart this campaign. So I guess if any of your organizations really believe in the power of education and how it can bring about change tomorrow, then let us know when we reach out to you a bit later about the event, because we'd love to kind of get all the like-minded organizations, people together for this campaign. But obviously, last but not least, sorry, my slide deck. There we go. To wrap up, look, we think that collaboration is key for us to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, given the scale and the complexity of the issue. And I'd like to welcome you back for the next part of the Sustainable Leadership Series. So please RSVP soon. We'll be gathering some of the challenges and pain points and any questions that we haven't answered today to really kind of, design the second and the third part of the series to actually tackle these issues. And before we go, look, thank you once again to Debbie, Helen, Francis, and Nina to be on a panel today and to volunteer their time and share their expertise, and for everyone else to attend today. So for those of you who are especially in Sydney and kind of closing in the lockdown mode, I hope everyone keep well, stay healthy, and strive to be the change that you want to see in this world. And I look forward to seeing you at the next event. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.